loaded and ready to go. How you feeling, my man?
I'm doing well. How are you? Getting through another Thursday here, approaching
Yes.
big game week.
Do you feel? Because I feel X will play with him being on the field on a Thursday. That kind of tells me that he's going to tough it out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and we know him to do exactly that. Obviously, the groin injuries they affected him some last year, so I mean maybe that is a concern too. I know our friend Omar Kelly, he likes to see him. He has even written that he wants to see him sit because he has seen how those groin injuries have lingered and affected him throughout the season. And would like to give him more time, but I mean, this is a big matchup where you have AJ Brown on the other side. You won't have Jalen Ramsey yet, although he is approaching a return and has since come back to practice. But uh, you don't want to go down to Kader Kohu being the number one corner, and then you're looking at whether it's Eli Apple or Perry Nickerson and Justin Bethel in your nickels and packages and all that against AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and the Eagles. Even if Jalen Hurts has recently thrown some interceptions, so we know what that offense is capable of. So. Uh, I think just the type of player he is, he will tough it out, and he's dealt with it before, and maybe now he's got some experience kind of handling his groins from last year.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. I mean, still against AJ Brown, that's going to be a bitch because that's a guy that can also high point the ball, and you really need an explosive X to be able to play with him at that level up in the air. And he's such a physical specimen too. It's going to be a hell of a challenge. Was the other cornerback practicing today?
The other cornerback being Jalen Ramsey.
Yes,
Or
sir.
yes, he was there for a second consecutive practice. There's a lot of cornerbacks on this team, but
No, but you know what? You know what?
yeah,
Because the reason why I ask you, David, usually when you're coming back from injuries, they don't practice you on consecutive days. They practice you, and then the next day they let you rest to see what kind of inflammation, what kind of soreness is going on. This tells you that his rehab is so ahead
yeah,
and he feels so good that they now have allowed him to practice in consecutive days.
yeah.
And you know this from being on the beat. You've seen guys that come back from injuries. Usually it's a tryout day of practice, and then they say, hey, let's rest on this day and then get back to practice the next day. Let's see how your body responds to it. Apparently, they feel really good about it for him to have two consecutive practices.
We've seen plenty of exactly that with Teron Armstead. He's often had one practice and then he gets a rest day. We saw the way they sort of gave him a maintenance program throughout last season so that he could be ready for game days and then not overload himself throughout the week of practice. So, yeah, there's been plenty of that. But Jalen Ramsey, I mean, everyone who speaks about him just talks about he's got it in his DNA. It's just he's a special breed, a different type of athlete to be able to come back that quickly from the meniscus surgery late July. That's within 3 months. And to be back on the practice field looking good. His movements appear pretty smooth, and he was even participating in, like dummy tackling drills. So, I mean, everyone has alluded to him being ahead of schedule, and we know he won't play this week, but just getting that week of practice in, that's going to be huge, where maybe he can go that very next game, get a game under him, possibly against New England, so that then that big challenge against the Chiefs in Germany, maybe you do have him out there for a second time.
That would be absolutely. If he makes it back for New England, wow, that's even earlier than I thought he would make it because I predicted early November, and most people thought I was crazy a couple weeks ago when I said that. But I had already found out about how much he had made in progress inside that building, and they were freaking out on how good he actually looks. Connor Williams, a guy that is also desperately needed for a physical game like this, where does he stand?
Yeah, so we did see him come back to practice today, Thursday. He missed the Wednesday practice. That was expected as he's nursing that groin injury that caused him to miss a second game in 3 weeks. So we spoke to him in the locker room. He said he is taking it day by day. When we watched the brief media viewing portion, we didn't really see him do much. He was out there, he was stretching, but he wasn't as active participation-wise as you would want at this point in the week if he is to play. So something to watch. He said it's probably coming down to game day.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think? What's your gut tell you?
Boy, against the Eagles, you would really like to see him. I think if he gets to a point, yeah, especially that's the front. If he gets to a point where he can manage it and maybe get through it like the way he was against the Giants, where maybe you are going to feel some residual pain afterwards, then it might be worth it to go ahead and give yourself a shot, just based on the big matchup, the big game. And that'll be a challenge for Liam Eichenberg. As much improvement as he did make from start one to start two as a center, now you're back on the road and against a very stout defensive front. We know that hostile environment in Philadelphia, that's going to be tough on a center as well. So that'll be right back to being a real big challenge for him.
Hey, how's my man Joe Shad hanging in there, bro? Because that was unfair. He wasn't asking. He was just presenting the question of the idiots that are out there thinking that anybody else can do it, and now people are picking on Joe Shad, and it's just not fair, dude. It's just not fair. How's he hanging in there? Because that wasn't nice.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get your information from a game of telephone, where you read either an aggregation from someone that wasn't there, but then they're trying to just write their own article from somewhere else off of what people who were there are saying, or just off the transcript or video, or just not understanding who Mike McDaniel is as just the personality that he has, and that he's going to use sarcasm when he's. I mean, whoever started putting that out there, then I don't think they really understand or maybe even watch the video to tell
Right.
that he was clearly being sarcastic as far as pushing the podium over, like if he was going to attack the reporter. So,
Well, I think in a way it's two-part there, twofold. Okay, the pushing of the podium is just an indirect way of saying that's silly,
yeah,
but then he then starts to elaborate and then includes everybody as a team, because then he says, well, Tyreek can run and Tua can throw and all that, but if the five guys in front don't block, and so he's very smart in the sense that he doesn't want to make it about any one person or anything like that, because in the end you're going to then end up insulting somebody. Well, you're either going to insult other quarterbacks or you're going to insult your own team or that. So he made it all about it. But I think at the beginning, by him saying the podium thing, I think it's a small example of his frustrations. Nothing big, but it's kind of, in a way, I think he kind of looks at it like it's silly to think that anybody could be plugged in there and they're going to do the same thing. That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So then Montana, everybody can do what Montana did and everybody can do what Brady did and all. Come on, man. That doesn't fly like that. It's kind of silly. But I felt bad for Joe because you know, and I've had my share of fun with Joe, okay, because he has waffled on the Tua thing, on and off, and all that, because he was on at first, and then he got off, and then he got back on, and he is totally on now. You know what I mean? But it's just like they want to make him out like the bad guy yesterday, and that's just not fair.
Yeah.
I,
Even in his question, he cited a lot of people might say, I forgot exactly how he phrased it, but
right.
insinuating, yeah, it's not his opinion per se.
No.
Yeah, and like you said, can it just be that it is just a very good marriage of having this Mike McDaniel system with a quarterback that throws with a extreme accuracy, anticipation, is that point guard that Mike McDaniel has alluded to so often, and can just run that system very well, and that you have this elite wide receiver that is possibly the biggest weapon in the NFL and could be setting records this season. Can it just be that all of those together are a very good marriage?
Yes, exactly. And again, not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
Because not everybody throws with anticipatory skills. By the way, the guy that a lot of people loved, Justin Herbert, does not throw.
I had a feeling.
He doesn't throw with any anticipatory skills. Neither does Ryan Tannehill. Neither does Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that don't have the skill of throwing anticipatory. So you will not be able to play in that offense at that level, at Tua's level, if you don't have anticipatory skills. So it's just, I just kind of felt bad for Joe, man. I just thought,
yeah,
know,
a lot of us came to his defense, and like you said, a lot of people say Justin Herbert, that if he had guys as open as Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle get, then he could do what Tua's doing now. Well, he had Keenan Allen very open a couple of times on Monday Night Football, and he missed with like 5 yards of separation and blatantly missed them. There were multiple examples of that.
Dude, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are always open.
Yeah.
They're receivers on stilts. The third guy, Donald Parham, is 6'6". They're
Joshua
always
Palmer.
open,
Yeah.
bro. He's a giant quarterback throwing to giant receivers, and he lost to an Oompa Loompa throwing to Oompa Loompa receivers. Give me a break, bro. All right, Chase Claypool. I say he's playing this week, and they'll have some kind of package for him. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I was wondering just last week if it would be, but then he was a healthy inactive again. So, um, well, yeah, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks, and maybe this is the one. It just, I think it's a lot of matchup based things and how what they need roster wise as far as having guys active, inactive, how deep they want to go at receiver. So maybe he needs some time, but yeah, especially with a receiving core that is already down, River Craycraft and Eric Ezukanma at this point, then maybe this could be the weekend. You debut some special package that you have for him
That's it.
on
That's
Sunday
it.
Night Football primetime against the Eagles. That'd be great.
Yeah, it's a dimension that you're
Yeah.
adding to the offense. So you'll have, some kind of Devontae Parker type packages, for him because like AJ Brown, he's one of those kind of guys. He's a mismatch guy, that he's like Mike Williams and Keenan, that he's a guy you can throw a 50-50 ball that's really 70-30 in his case, because that's what AJ Brown is. When you throw a ball to AJ Brown, shit, that thing might be 90-10 with AJ Brown because that guy is, oh my God, that guy is freakish strong, dude.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that guy is strong. But, those kind of guys. So for me, that's why I think, and this is the perfect kind of game for it, man. Perfect kind of game. Pressure's coming. All you got to do is play alley oop. And who's better at accuracy and ball placement than Tua, bro? I think, he did it with Gesicki. I picture that Gesicki play, and I'm going, Chase Claypool can do the exact same stuff for you.
Yeah. I would think right now the decision with our partners at Welt Rheaume, it might be a hung jury right now at this point. I'm trying to bring up different legal terms every week
Good.
to
It's good.
incorporate them. Yeah, am I doing that right?
Yeah,
So
we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So
yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
kind
So
of a hung jury here.
yeah,
Yes, that's a
so
good one on
yeah,
your.
I'm gonna have to get with some of my lawyer friends to find out new, deeper cut type of legal terms to
You're gonna
start
have
working into
just
my
watch.
segments.
You're gonna have to watch some Law and Order, bro.
Yeah, yeah,
That's it. Some Law and Order. Get some stuff that's constantly in the courts, and you'll get the liners there. Um, the one thing I had a little fun with this at the beginning of the show. Okay, and very few of us can do this because you got to be old to kind of remember it and then put it all together. So back in '85, the Dolphins hosted a undefeated Bears team that came into town. And the Dolphins were the speed team, finesse team. They weren't really considered a physical bunch. They had all that speed on the field with the Marx brothers and all that. And the Bears, well, their secondary wasn't a great secondary. Their front seven was awesome and they could pressure a lot. So Shula and the boys figured out a way to put the pressure on them and win and hand them their first loss, right? And their only loss. And then you were hoping, if it wasn't for our Dolphins freaking choking in the AFC Championship game with all those fumbles, they would be a rematch at the end of the year because that was the kryptonite to the Bears. Unfortunately, they choked against the Patriots. The Patriots went to the Super Bowl and they got thoroughly embarrassed because they did not scheme fit against those guys. They couldn't attack their weakness. Well, Sunday night, you're playing the physical team against what's considered more of the finesse speed team. And what's not their strength is their secondary.
yeah,
So, in a way, this is going to be the physical matchup that Miami has not been able to pass yet. So, if you're able to do that, that's great. But even better, if you can win this game and somehow out scheme them offensively, because I think that's what you're going to have to do. I think the offense is going to have to carry. I think the defense just has to be timely. Get a couple of right stops at the right moment, and you barely win the game, whatever, by a score or whatever. And you get by and you win. But I think the offense will have to carry it. But more importantly, it also sends a message to the Eagles that if you do meet them again in the Super Bowl, you know exactly how to go after them. You know what I mean? So I know that in the big picture, you lose this game, really, you haven't really lost much, because if you go on to beat Kansas City, take care of the rest of the scrubs on your schedule, and even beat the Bills, you'll be in golden shape. But by the time you get to the Super Bowl, if you meet Philadelphia again, you're going to go, oh, crap. They handed us a loss the last time. We need to do better. I think this game, while it's not the most important in the big picture, it could be important in sending a message. And on top of that, proving to yourself that you can cross that threshold of physical play.
Yeah, and last Sunday, even adding to those similarities to that 85 Dolphins Bears matchup, I was looking toward as the San Francisco 49ers were handed their first loss in the early game with the Cleveland Browns. The Eagles at that point were the lone remaining unbeaten. They were playing in the later matchups, and then if they had won that game, then they would have been the only remaining unbeaten going into this Dolphins game in a primetime matchup, with the Dolphins also being really good and having those similarities. So I was looking forward to that around the time when I was on with you post game. Then eventually the Eagles end up losing to the Jets in that sort of ugly slugfest of a game with all those turnovers. But so now you get an Eagles team that is coming off a loss. Maybe there's some motivation factor there, but yeah, I mean, you mentioned it that you can send a message to this team, a team that you could potentially face in the Super Bowl. But even if you don't, you just play them close. But then maybe there are some things that you could pick up on that can save in the back pocket for a potential rematch, and that works out okay too. So even if you don't show everything you have, but then you sort of figure out, okay, they beat us and this was the difference, then maybe that gives you a leg up if you face them a second time. The same way you see so many divisional matchups, they end up being splits just because of the natural way that it's tough to beat a team twice, and then even tougher if, let's say, a team sweeps one in the regular season. If they face each other again in the postseason, now there's two games of what did they do to beat us, and then now what we can do to counteract that.
Yeah, and the sad part about this, David, is that, and I know some Dolphins are going to get mad with me now because I'm going to be honest, and they don't want to hear honesty. That's negativity. They don't really have a lot to on film to learn from last week, because unfortunately the Dolphin defense is nowhere near the Jets defense. The Jet defense is way more talented, way more loaded, and they can do things that probably the Dolphins cannot do on defense. And then obviously offensively, the Jets are absolute garbage. So there's nothing for the offense to learn, because that offense barely even had offense last week. It was the defense that pretty much carried that game, overall. So it's going to be hard for them to pick up anything from that game on the defensive side of how to attack the Eagles.
Yeah, and it's just going to be tough to replicate that. The Jets won by forcing four turnovers. The Dolphins haven't created a takeaway since the Week 3 game against the Broncos. They've gone three straight games without a turnover, even if the defense has been better against the Giants and Panthers. No takeaways against the Giants, lost that turnover battle 3-0, and then didn't have one against the Panthers. So even against those teams, they are getting to the quarterback, leading the league in quarterback hits, and up there in sacks as well with 21 of those. So those effects on a quarterback could lead to them eventually, but it just hasn't in recent games.
Yeah, man, it's been tough, dude. What's your key in this game? What's the most important thing you think the Dolphins have to do in order to win this game?
Yeah, definitely exploit that Philadelphia secondary. So I want to see the passing game light it up. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, big games from both of them, and Tua just playing his game, throwing with anticipation, and really tearing up that secondary that is thin right now, has been plagued by injuries. They'll have to exploit that big time. They'll really have to win that matchup, because it's hard to find other areas where they just have a clear advantage. Everything's else. I did a who has the edge piece breaking down matchups in the Sun Sentinel, and I kind of found it where everything else is either even, or it might be to an Eagles advantage. So it's just tough against a team like that to find a lot of other weaknesses. So that's where I want to see him. And then, just like you said, get a stop. Where you saw that Bills game, how early on it was looking like a back and forth shootout, but then the offense stopped keeping up with them. But then also the defense wasn't getting any stops. You need just a stop or two while the offense is continuing to go. And you got to get into the maybe high 30s to win this game, probably.
You getting the feeling that these guys want this game badly?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them are trying to take, at least what they tell us, is the approach of it is one game of 17, not trying to make it more than it needs to be. I know you roll your eyes because that's the PC answer. So, yeah, I'm trying to get a read on them to see if that's how they really feel. I think
Deep down inside, they don't feel that way.
once the game arrives, then yeah, you're showing up on primetime Sunday Night Football. You're coming through the tunnel at Lincoln Financial Field, and those Philly fans are booing the hell out of you. Then yeah, you probably get a little bit more hype.
Tua talked it up. Tua talked it up.
Oh yeah,
He talked it up how he knew how great they are, and that's a good measure. I'm paraphrasing, but he kind of said that's a good way to measure where we're at. Going up against a team that was in the Super Bowl or something. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but Tua did not shy away from that as this being a measuring stick type of game.
right.
Actually.
Absolutely. And he was very complimentary of Jalen Hurts, a guy that he's very familiar with as well. So he's always going to have a lot of love for him.
Yeah. And by the way, how are you not complimentary of Jalen Hurts?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy carries himself perfectly.
Yeah.
He works hard. He sacrifices himself. He improved last year in his passing and everything. There's nothing not to like about Jalen Hurts. There's nothing not to respect about Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, to work his way up to MVP runner-up. And just
man.
a few years ago, he was subbed out at halftime of the college football championship game. That wasn't too long ago. That was 2017. It was in January of 2018, that 17 season. And then he's benched for the next year. He's a backup to Tua, and then transfers, has to take the circuitous route to the success. Already has his big contract, so as a second rounder, then got there even ahead of Tua, and then on par with others in that same draft class. Tua hopes to get his this offseason, probably. The way he's going, it's looking like he will get a plentiful, lucrative deal. So, yeah, just you got to admire the way he persevered. The only knock you can have on him in recent games is those turnovers. So that'll be something the Dolphins can see if they can jumpstart the turnover forcing aspect of the defense here.
Yeah.
If he keeps going like that.
Yeah. I think he'll be fine. You're going to make some mistakes, and I think in the Giant game he got a little cute, and I think they took a little extra chances than they should have because they didn't really respect. They'll never tell you that, but the way they played, they didn't really respect the Giants. They thought they could take some chances, and they knew they weren't going to lose the game no matter what. Like you said, they lost the turnover badly, the turnover battle. Normally, you lose that game if you lose the turnover battle that badly, but because you're playing a terrible team. And by the way, kudos to Nick Saban. I know we're not supposed to do that down here, but I kind of feel bad for, even though I don't believe in Mac Jones being some kind of elite player, but I think he's in a really effed up situation with Patricia last year and everything going on with Belichick now and all that. But when I look at the way Mac Jones is, the way Hurts is, the way Tua, Nick also recruits good human beings besides picking, players and quarter and talent and all that. Those dudes, and Bryce Young, by the way, another one, dude, they carry themselves just beautifully. You know what I'm saying? Overall. So kudos to Nick Saban, because not only is he recruiting talent, but he's recruiting, exceptional human beings too, on top of all of that. That's pretty cool on his part. And especially at that position, you got to have it. So what's the prediction there, tough guy?
Well, at this point, do we get over the Nick Saban thing since he provided Miami with
No,
Tua? No, we got to make sure.
No. Nick Saban doesn't get any passes down here. No.
Yeah.
No.
By the way, the injury report just came out, so we can get
anybody that treats Fudge Brown the way he did. And do you know Fudge Brown?
Fudge Brown.
He worked for the Dolphins forever.
Okay.
One of the greatest human beings on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell you this, one of the greatest human beings on the planet, Fudge Brown. And if anybody ever says they had a problem with Fudge Brown, then that person is a terrible human being. Okay? Fudge Brown is a beautiful person. And she is just awesome in every way. And she is a perfect person and employee and all that. And that guy mistreated her badly. And so he mistreated a whole bunch of people. But once you did that to Fudge Brown, and I know who Fudge Brown is, look, I can see people having a problem with me. Okay? I get it. I'm a tough character at times. I get it. That's fine, and I know it. But Fudge Brown, no, buddy. I'm her left tackle. Okay, I will protect her because she is just a golden human being, and to treat her like that, yeah. Saban will never get the pass from me on that, but I will give him props. He is a great football guy, dude.
You have to.
You have to give him. He's the best college football coach I've seen out there ever, man. That guy is an absolute monster. All right, so what's the prediction, tough guy?
All right. What I did post in the Sun Sentinel, I do have the Eagles winning 34-31. So I think, yeah, it'll get into the 30s, but low 30s. And I think if the Dolphins can score a little bit more than that, then they can pull this off, maybe get one more stop. But, yeah, I do have them losing this tight battle, exploiting some things in the Eagles, but then also having some things to take away going forward. That, hey, if they do end up facing each other again in the Super Bowl, then you have a little bit of information you could keep in the back pocket to use against Philadelphia in that second matchup.
I'm with you there. 52 points is the over and under. So David Furones is saying that the over. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He's saying take the over. All right. Follow him on Twitter at David Furones _ and catch his work here twice a week. And of course, we'll talk to him again post game. Hopefully, it's a happy post game. Yeah. It's a post game where you're wrong.
Hopefully, I'm wrong.
Hopefully, you're wrong. Let's do it. David, have a great weekend, my brother, and safe travels.
Thank you.
You got it. Don't wear anything Dolphins. Not that you would. You got it. There you go. Welt Rheaume, baby. 954-966-4646.